We are Fandom Roulette.
Two nerds with a passion for
History,
video games,
tabletop games,
and, well, really any nerdy stuff that comes into our lives.
While we might not be able to name every ship classification in Star Wars,
Or every Pokemon.
or every spell in the player's handbook,
Well, one of us can.
we're still here to have a good time. Hey everyone, welcome to Fandom Roulette. This is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And on Fandom Roulette, this is a podcast where we talk about a myriad of nerdy things, including such things as history, video games, tabletop role-playing games, and whatever nerdy things that we want to talk about when it sees fit.
Yeah.
And this one, we're kind of like reviving like a long dead section.
I know, right?
Which was...
Isn't that weird?
Which was the grab bag.
Yeah,
where
our pop culture media section.
Yeah. Or we just kind of choose a thing that we were like dig in and talk a little bit about it. So before I begin, I just have to do something really quick.
Yeah.
It's gotta. Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh yeah, you gotta get
your
you got your grunts and your fuck shit.
Fuck. Sure. Yeah. So this week we're talking about The Witcher, and I'm gonna use my Witcher voice.
Oh, you're gonna do that the whole time?
I don't know. Let's see if I can commit to the bit.
I feel so bad for your throat already.
No, it's cool.
Yeah,
this is fine. Yeah, hey.
Oh, totally cool. Yeah, totally won't destroy my voice. No.
Yeah, no, it's fine. I don't need to do anything tomorrow that involves my voice. That's a lie. I have to do this.
Wait, that's a lie. You literally work at a place where you have to talk to people.
I mean, yeah, but yes. Okay. So anyway, we're talking about the first episode of The Witcher.
Yeah.
From 2019, the Netflix original series.
Yeah.
Starring Henry Cavill, based off of the series of novels by that Polish guy whose name I can't remember right now.
Oh, damn. Oh, dip.
No, it's cool. Give me a second. I'm on it. And also, I mean, it's not really like based on the video games, really, right? If memory serves.
Man, that's tough. So, like, kind of not... I don't know. It is reminiscent of the video games, but definitely does not follow that script at all, as I am aware. Granted, I'll be honest, it's been a while, because, like, the first two Witcher games came out literally eons ago, and the only one that's fresh in my mind is, like, my 100 bajillion hour playthrough of Witcher 3, and that was before the DLC came out. I'm eventually going to have to go back and play the DLC, which I hear is as long, if not longer, than the base game. So I'm fucked.
Hell yeah. So apologies in advance to this gentleman. And
good luck.
Sapkowski.
Yeah, that's close.
Yeah. A Polish author.
Yeah. We should also probably mention that this is going to be a lot of spoilers for The Witcher. So if you haven't watched it yet, I would recommend watching it before you listen to this, because we'll probably reference, even though we're talking about episode 1, we will probably reference The Witcher in general, whether it's, the games or like just further along in the series. So like definitely like watch those, like pause this, watch those, come back. It won't take too long. I binged it in like a day and a half. So
yeah. I actually paced it out a little bit. I did over 3 days.
Look at you with self-restraint.
I did over 3 days. So yeah. So a teensy bit of background on The Witcher. So as we mentioned, it was based off of a series of short stories and novels from Poland. Apparently, like, they were originally just featuring, like, they were short stories in, like, basically Polish literary magazines. So he was just kind of publishing them all over the place, and eventually brought them together and produced them as books. And then the series, there are, I believe it's a trilogy of books, and then a trilogy of video games. That the third one, The Witcher 3, just became, like, so immensely popular.
It
Like,
really did, though. Like,
I
Witcher...
heard the first two did okay, and then, like, the third one just, like, blew up.
Well, okay, so the thing about The Witcher and then The Witcher 2 Assassins of Kings is, like, at the time, they were good, right? Like, they were... I wouldn't say they were, like, crazy,
Like,
but they were fantasy games. Yeah, like, they were fantasy games, they were fun. The controls took a little bit to get used to, but ultimately, I didn't play them mostly because, if I'm not mistaken, those games kind of came out on consoles, or on, what did it come out on? Okay, I know why. Yeah. When the first two games came out, I was not a PC gamer yet.
Okay.
And mostly because I was a mere child at that point. Not a child, I was 18. But yeah, I was an 18-year-old who couldn't afford a computer that could run a game that cool. It wasn't until much later where I could finally build my own computer and build, like, a quote-unquote gaming computer. And that's when I got Witcher 3.
Rig.
Yeah, a rig. And yeah, so I got The Witcher 3 and I was like, I probably should play the first two. And they are a bit dated. Graphically, they're not as cool as, like, modern day, and the controls are a little wonky. So they definitely have a bit of a curve to, like, get through them. And honestly, I'm pretty sure you don't need to know much getting into The Witcher 3. Besides, there are people in this fantasy universe called Witchers who are basically, like, hybrid human/mutants.
Yeah. According to an article that I read about The Witcher, as I was watching through the show, apparently Witchers were, like, experiments from the Brotherhood of Mages that were, like, failures.
Okay.
And the reason that they're called Witchers is, like, it's kind of like, they're kind of seen as, like, this failed dark magic and things like that.
Yeah.
But they're, like, I mean, basically, like, fantasy exterminators.
Yeah, like fantasy monster exterminators that everyone hates because, the general, like, whispers of, like, the dark magics and, like, the fact that, like, supposedly Witchers can't feel.
Yes, they can't feel,
like, on a physical or emotional level.
They have, like, scary eyeballs sometimes.
Yes.
And I mean, it's also one of those things too where it's just like magic is kind of a wild thing if you think about it. And so
yeah, the magic in the Witcher universe is very, like, it's chaotic and crazy, but there are kind of rules to it. And so people who partake in magic are kind of, like, constantly working with a live active explosive in their hands at all times.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous, and only the crazy or the smart can, like, even do it.
They literally refer to the power source as, like, chaos. Like, they are harnessing chaos.
Yeah, like, it's like a chaos realm, and I believe personally that when you lose a game of Crossfire or Yu-Gi-Oh cards, that is where you go, and that's where they harness their power.
Okay. I thought you turned into, like, an eel or whatever.
Well, I mean, spoilers.
Oh,
So
whatever. It's one scene and it's never explained again.
true, very true. So yeah, the show, in my personal opinion, I went into, because like I binged it on that day. I tried to go into it without using any of my Witcher 3 knowledge. I know that's hard to do, but like I was
Sure.
trying my hardest to kind of stay away from trying to like correlate or connect things from the games.
Uh-huh.
And they do a really good job in that first episode kind of getting you into the vibe of that realm, because it's very much like I don't want to use this term because I know it's kind of like clickbaity buzzword, but like it's kind of like Game of Thrones styled fantasy. Like it's a little darker.
Yeah, it's gritty and it's grimy. It's not a
Right.
very pretty world.
But the difference that is, at least from what I've seen of Game of Thrones is very magic light, meaning there's not a ton of like magic in the world. Like there aren't wizards like throwing fireballs on your street corners. There's like these rare moments where like, oh shit, there's fucking ice zombies or some shit. I don't know.
Sure.
And
So,
then
oh yeah. So
where
I mean, like the basic explanation is that like magic is coming back in Game of Thrones, but it's still pretty vague in the books.
Okay.
So like when the dragons came back, they brought magic with them.
Okay.
But it's also that thing that has there's elements of a thing that kind of has bugged me about a lot of or some contemporary fantasy, which is that it's like, oh, like let's go to the like mage, and the mage is like, this is a magical powder that like is two minerals I combine. I'm like, yes, we get it, it's gunpowder. Like you made gunpowder. Like, let magic be magical, please. Let it be weird and otherworldly and unexplainable and understandable and shit like that.
Yeah. Well, okay. I have a point about that, but I'll get to that
Yeah.
later. But the difference between this and something like Game of Thrones is The Witcher is very embedded in its magic use.
Yeah.
Like there are monsters that have come from chaos and they basically plague anywhere that isn't a town, and sometimes even in the towns, like everywhere is fucked. Wizards are like practicing in secret and have illusions and things like that, and a lot of people have, especially like news articles, like they're kind of comparing this or like kind of hyping this up to be like, oh, this is going to be the Game of Thrones killer, because everyone was so disappointed with the ending, I guess. Yes. I don't really know the ending because I didn't watch the show, but
I've heard things, and I kind of was glad that I stopped when I did.
Yeah. So to not get like too deep into the episode,
yeah.
Basically, there are two stories being told at the same time.
Yeah.
We follow the main protagonist, Geralt of Rivia, who is a Witcher, and he's in. I don't know about the books, haven't read them, but in this show, he is so well written as a character hated by society for all the things that were done to him, who is so desperately trying to avoid the concept of destiny, but destiny just has other plans for him, and he hates it. And he comes off as broody and an asshole, and he's not your typical hero. Like, he's very much like an anti-hero in ways. But, to the same token, like, he wants to be a good person. In the first episode, like, basically, he's given a lesser of two evils choice.
Okay.
And he says, no, I'm not making that choice. Fuck off. Which is very much in character of Geralt. He's very much like, nah, fuck you. I'm not doing that. And then that's his story. And then they transition to this, the kind of the backdrop story, if you will, of this royal family of Sintra, which is a kingdom that sits in the northern region of this area. And they kind of come off as very pompous and like better than everybody kind of thing, like your traditional royal family, like fantasy family, I guess. And the story kind of follows there's something happening, and this country or this kingdom to the south called the Nilfgaards, or called Nilfgaard, they are like taking over other places, and the royal family of Sintra is like, haha, that could never happen to us. We're so much better than they are, blah, blah, blah. And then, spoilers, turns out they may not be as safe as they think they are.
Woo.
Right. And it's funny because I didn't even realize this in episode 1. So throughout the whole Witcher show, there are 3 stories that we follow.
Yeah.
But they don't introduce the third story until episode 2.
Yep.
And it's also interesting because Geralt's story is pretty structured, where we follow him doing certain things, and that's it. Like, it's like the camera doesn't... When it's Geralt's story, it is about Geralt. But when we talk about this royal family, it starts off being this kind of weird, like, you don't really know who the focus is, in my opinion. Like, sometimes it's the granddaughter, whose name is Ciri, who, spoiler alert, does become the important part of the story. But it often transitions to the royal family, which is her grandmother and grandfather, who run the country that they currently live in, or the kingdom, whatever.
Yeah.
So it's very interesting that, and then in that third story about the other person, it is very specifically about that character and their life. So it's weird that the 3 stories that they tell, 2 of them are very structured around the person, and then the third one's kind of this weird transitional tale that goes from being this kind of ambiguous, like, this is the backdrop of this world, to, oh no, this is very specifically about the granddaughter.
Yeah, I mean, I kind of saw that from the get-go, especially the way that the character was introduced.
Yeah.
Where it was like very much like, oh, she's like this little tomboyish, like she wants to be like kind of a street rat kind of thing. And I was like, oh, I know this character.
Right.
But I found the end of that first episode super shocking.
Yeah, because
I did not see it coming at all.
Yeah, so they kind of allude during the first episode. It's about an hour-long episode, so they allude for about 45 minutes that there's this southern country, or kingdom. I keep wanting to use the word country, but I should be using kingdom. I apologize. This southern kingdom of Nilfgaard are, like, slowly creeping up. And then, like, that final scene is basically Nilfgaard attacking them, and they're winning, and they're killing everybody, and it's fucking crazy.
Yeah, it's very, very intense.
It's a very intense scene.
Well, and so I have a question, Cody. So
Yeah.
At what point did you realize that these stories were happening at 2 separate times?
Okay, so that's another thing. They don't mention during the show at all that the 3 stories they're telling happen at different moments in time, and each story kind of hops around.
Yeah.
And and I would argue that this might be maybe one of the drawbacks of the show, is that,
I would say, ironically enough, the series story is the one that stays the most linear throughout.
Yeah,
so
for the most part.
Yeah.
So, that being said, I didn't realize it until, I believe this is episode 3 or 4, so we're kind of skipping ahead. There are 2 children mentioned in Geralt's storyline that end up being actual actors in another person's timeline, and they're supposed to be dead in Geralt's time. So I was like, oh shit, those people are fucking alive. And so that's when it clicked, like, they're doing the Tarantino time jumpy thing without necessarily telling you.
Sure. Yeah, I realized it at some point in episode 1. I don't remember at what point, but I remember asking my friend who knew a little bit more about The Witcher. I'm like, are these happening at the same time? He was like, aha, so you've discovered the thing that people are complaining about, basically.
Yeah, they definitely don't tell you, and I guess it really, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter, because it's not like, because eventually, if you watch the whole first season, you know exactly how everything goes. It's not mysterious once you've seen it all. It can be a little jarring when you realize it, and I think that's the problem, is there are a few moments where that like sudden realization becomes so jarring, and then you kind of spend like, instead of just being like, all right, I'm going to let the show continue, you go, well, wait, when is this and when is that? And I think that's just maybe a product of we as humans trying to like make connections and things like that, and not just letting a show be a show. So that's probably on me a little bit, like that. I feel like that's kind of a hindrance to a certain degree, but at the same time, like, I know a lot of people were like, what the fuck? So, I don't know. I will say this. They don't explain it in episode 1. I believe it's episode 2 they talk about magic.
Yes.
And this is a thing that I want in my fantasy. This is just Cody's personal thing.
Okay.
I want you to give me an elevator pitch of how magic works. I don't need to know all the mechanics. I don't need like a fucking thesaurus or dictionary definition of magic in your universe. I just want to know the just like bare bone rules. Right? Like, I don't want magic to be this convenient MacGuffin thing that gets used as like a, I don't have to explain why this happens, because to me that's lazy.
I think that The Witcher does it to a certain extent.
And yeah, and what I'm going to say is The Witcher gives me the elevator pitch. It says magic comes from chaos, which to me sounds like Other Realm, or maybe it's like the Force and it's midichlorians. I don't know. Doesn't matter. Chaos is the term. You pull from that, it's super dangerous. And also, there is a cost to magic.
Yes.
There's always a cost. And you know what? That's all I need. That way, if someone does like some badass spell or does something wild, I know that to some degree they had to like sacrifice like 13, men to do that or something. You know what I mean?
Sure.
So like, I know the rules. I know exactly what to expect from magic. And that's all I want. I don't want like, you don't have to be like, well, in order to cast light magic spells, you need to know Latin and be able to move your hands in. Like, I don't care about that shit. That's too much. Maybe down the road, but just tell me like very bare bones elevator pitch of how it works and what to expect. Yes. And I think The Witcher does a perfect job of that. It doesn't, because because at one point I do want it to be mysterious. Like, I want to like find out that like, oh shit, conjuring fire is like the worst thing you can do or something later, like a big reveal. But also, I don't want there to be a situation where I'm like, well, what the fuck? Why didn't they just use magic to do that if they could do it here? Like, you know what I mean? Because I feel like that's what happens in fantasy. Magic gets used as like, because and this is a side tangent, I watched the first couple of seasons of, shit, I don't remember what it's called anymore. It's the story about all the fairy book tale characters living in the real world.
Oh, Once Upon a Time?
Yeah, Once Upon a Time. I watched the first like 4 seasons of that, and they also explain that magic has a price. Except in the case of the main character. And like, I guess they explain it later in fucking season like 9 that she's the exception to the rule or whatever. But I hate that shit. I hate when like, oh, the main character is like a MacGuffin item that it can just overwrite the terrible problem because magic. I don't have to explain shit. That shit drives me crazy.
I feel it to a certain degree. I'll say this, like, the thing I really liked about magic in The Witcher, and this is more episode 2 talk than episode 1 talk, although I mean magic's kind of like pretty paramount for Geralt in general. He has his signs that they don't really explain all that well in the show, but it's something that he has and he can do. I like the implication that like humans have corrupted magic to a certain degree. I think that's always really cool. Um, and it's one of those things where it's like, they think they're doing it better, but they are, they're like actively kind of screwing up the world.
Well,
Yeah.
it's just it's a unique way of using magic, because we often see it as like, oh, it's a tool that we use. We can, it's like having a toolbox with like fucking fireballs and like ice beams and shit. But like,
Sure.
it's interesting to be like, oh no, the way we humans use it, we're like fucking up the ecosystem and we're destroying everything in its process. Like, it's a unique way of putting it.
Yeah. And so yeah. Also I'll say this. I there were some pretty cool, I think, ways of showcasing things. So I like the fact that in The Witcher, Geralt's magic and I think there are other magics are like kind of these like weird amorphous shiny, like almost lens effects.
Yeah.
I think it's like a really cool way of doing magic on, I don't know what the budget is, but it felt like it was a cool way of doing magic on a TV budget.
Yeah.
But like I knew exactly what was happening with it. And it's sometimes kind of cool to have magic be this subtle thing because, like it's presented in the game, which I played very, very little of, mind you. That like there's some magic that you can do subtly without necessarily drawing attention to yourself. And so the fact that it's like, like a kind of almost like a mist, like a blink and you'll miss it thing. I thought was kind of cool. And then just like the way that they were shooting the action, like especially when Geralt faces down those like 6 dudes.
Oh, it's such a good fight scene.
Oh, also, so another thing I've heard about the Witcher series in general is that it's kind of the author taking like classic fairy tales and kind of like turning them on their head or like adding a twist to them.
Yeah. Lots of like, if memory serves, like Polish-based like folklore monsters and things like that.
Yeah, so I think, and who knows, I could be wrong. It felt to me very similar to almost like a Snow White style story, that first episode. Because she had, like the story of how, she was sent out in the woods to get slaughtered or whatever, and then
and she survived. It was very Snow White, but like turned it on its head. She's not like
innocent or
but
gentle or whatever. But yeah,
the one thing I wanted to bring up before we close on this, okay. I know we're cutting it kind of close. So the premise of the first episode, at least in Geralt's story, is he is presented with 2 people asking for 2 different things. A wizard is asking him to kill a person who is like mutated to some degree based on some bullshit prophecy, whatever. And then that person is also asking Geralt to kill the wizard, or at least exposing the wizard enough so that she can kill him because the wizard fucked up her life. And Geralt in this case is like, no, I'm not doing, fuck that. I'm not getting in the middle of this shit. You do you, whatever. And so after he basically tells both of them to fuck off and like kind of goes off on his own, the woman, Renfrey, finds him in the woods as he is with his horse doing Witcher things, whatever that may be. And then she has a conversation with him and then sleeps with him, and then she leaves before he wakes up, and this is where Jess, because I was watching this with my wife, she brings up like, what the fuck happened when, like, why would she go to him, tell him that she's not going to go kill the guy, sleep with him, and then like leave and like take all of his stuff?
Well, I think the implication is that she's put a curse on him, obviously. The curse of destiny. And
so she put a curse of destiny. I felt that was
the implication of destiny.
Right.
Because the girl in the woods will never leave you. She says that to him before.
Yeah, and that becomes super apparent in the literal last episode of the show.
But But yeah, I think that was the thing is she put a curse on him or did something to him rather to, maybe the idea is that, she would have enough time to go and take care of Stregobor before he like woke up and realized it.
Right.
That's how I viewed it. So.
Okay. Cause I was a little confused why she would even like, cause like he was willing to just sympathy. Like, yeah, I don't know. Cause like in my head, it just made more sense that she would just do it and like not. So like I kind of see the destiny angle. So like a big part of Geralt's like story is just that he's trying so hard to fight against destiny and it just always comes back and bites him in the ass. And maybe this is just them tying that together, like it was destiny for her to reveal that information. And he's like, and maybe she did that because she knows that he's trying to avoid destiny. So she's like, no. Destiny's gonna fucking get your ass much like it's getting mine.
Yeah,
and
I think that was the implication. Okay. That's how I read it, at least. So.
Yeah, because Jess and I were a little confused. And in like the heat of it, I was like, I don't know, maybe she just like thought it was a good idea and like sorely miscalculated because it ends up biting her in the ass.
Yeah,
because he then figures out like, oh, she's lying. She took all my stuff and put this fucking, put all this destiny shit on my head. So now it's fucked.
Yeah.
But yeah, and then that episode ends just about as sad. It's a pretty grim ending on both the what I'm calling the story of the lions and Geralt of Rivia.
Yep.
They both end pretty grim dark. We won't.
But hey, it's a hard life for a Witcher. So
it is a hard life for a Witcher. I'm really excited to get to that episode. So yeah, I think in the future we probably won't get too deep on each and every episode because that would probably be a long series. We'll probably group some of them together as we kind of talk about more stuff because like Geralt, that there's this royal family in Sintra. And so, like, we'll probably kind of start moving a little faster as new concepts are introduced. Yeah. But yeah, that's about all the time we got for this first episode. It was such a good episode.
Yeah, it's a solid premiere.
Yeah, for sure.
Even when I was confused with the time stuff. But anyway.
Yeah, but
thank you guys so much for listening to Fan Roulette. Cody, you want to do the call to action thing?
Yeah, so if you like this content and you want to hear more about it, please get at us on our social media. You could do that on Twitter at fandomr_podcast. Let us know how you felt about The Witcher. Who do you like out of, the main characters and stuff like that. You can also check us out on our website if you're looking for more content about the nerdy stuff that we're interested in at www.fandomroulette.com. You can look at a bio and basically check out our seasons. We have hundreds at this point of hours of content now. So yeah, check us out there. If you are on our podcast format, whether that's iTunes, SoundCloud, Google Play, Spotify, all that stuff, make sure you rate us, bring us up through the charts, share to a friend, anything you can do to help us out in kind of our growing stages of the podcast. We would be eternally grateful. And if you're on YouTube listening to us, feel free to like, comment, subscribe, smash the bell, do all those things, interact with us. We would love to chat about your view on The Witcher and all the other stuff that we've talked about. If you are on YouTube, we are finally caught up. By the end of January, everything should be in tandem with one another. So cool. Yay! So that being said, thank you guys so much for hanging out, listening to us talk about The Witcher. I was super excited about this episode. I knew we were gonna go a little over what our target bandwidth was, but you know what? It's for Geralt. He's my dude. Yeah. I love him. He's my favorite.
Your Witcher. But anyway, signing off for Fan Roulette. This is Joe.
And I'm Cody.
And as always, stay nerdy.
Stay super nerdy.